Mother's Day can be really beautiful, but it can also feel really heavy.
For some people, it's a day full of celebration and joy.
But for others, it holds grief, longing, waiting, or stories that didn't turn out the way we expected.
So this year, we just wanted to take a few minutes to share a little of our stories.
Not because we have everything figured out,
but because we know how easy it can be to feel alone in these kinds of seasons.
My journey into motherhood hasn't looked the way I imagined. Our first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage around 12 weeks. When we got our 12-week ultrasound, we found out. But just a few months later, God blessed us with Asher, and he is the best thing that's ever happened to us. He's 5 years old now, and just the best joy in our lives. A couple years later, I got pregnant again with Beckett, and my body went into preterm labor. Beckett was born, and he lived for a little over 2 hours. It was the best and worst day of my entire life. I had the greatest joy holding both of my boys on the same day, but also followed by the greatest grief I've ever known and hope to ever know in this lifetime. Losing a child just changes you. It marks you, it rewrites you. But here's what I also know, is that God shows up. And for us, he showed up through people. Even in the delivery room, we found out that the nurse went to our church. She grieved with us, she cried with us, and we felt the closeness of God, even in that very moment and all of the grief. Our community, when we got home, didn't show up with flowers and move on. They stayed. They showed up with meals for months. They sat with us in the grief, spoke truth over us, and then they did something I'll never forget. They stepped in to plan Asher's 3rd birthday party while we were planning a funeral that same week. And so that Saturday, the day before we buried his brother, our people made sure our little boy still felt celebrated and loved. And on Sunday, we had to say goodbye to Beckett. And I don't have words for what that kind of love does to a person. That was the body of Christ showing up, and the church being exactly what it was always meant to be. There were so many seasons where I grieved the family I thought we would have, the story I thought we were writing, but in the middle of it, we just clung to Jesus. And our pastor told me on the day we got home from the hospital that it was okay to yell, to be angry, to question God, and he has big shoulders and he can handle it. And that changed everything about my prayer life. I stopped trying to hold it together in front of God and started bringing him my real self, my grief, my confusion, my anger, and every single time he met me there. Our story looks different now. God has made it clear that adoption is our next step, and we are right in the middle of waiting for the baby he already knows will be a part of our family. It's not the story I would have written, but I trust that he's still writing something beautiful. And Mother's Day will probably always hold joy and grief for me, but I know now I'm not walking through it alone. I never was, and neither are you.
We had 2 biological daughters 13 months apart and immediately started an adoption process after that. We always wanted a big, diverse family. We wanted it to kind of look like the kingdom of heaven, and we were so excited. It was going to take 9 to 12 months. We fundraised, we sold our most valuable things like all Chase's tools and bikes and kayaks and my wedding rings, and we had such a community supporting us. So it was a really exciting time, but the months of waiting turned into years. After 5 years and updates, I got an email that Ethiopia had closed in all their adoptions for in-country trafficking. I got that email and I just laid on the floor and grieved, and I felt such shame for all the people that had come alongside of us. In ministry, I feel like I'm in a fishbowl often, and so everybody was able to see that we failed in my eyes, so that was super hard. We fostered while we were planning a church in Nashville. We had 2 therapeutic boys for a short-term placement, and it was rough. We definitely decided to take a break, and again, I felt like I had failed. I had a church watching us, and we weren't successful with that, and it just hurt a lot. So for years, I just carried that grief and shame. We also learned at that time that we couldn't have any more biological kids, which was a real hit. When we moved back to town, we decided to foster again through Wake County, and it burdened us. There are hundreds of kids without a family and a safe place to sleep. We were placed after a few months with our daughter, Malaysia, and one afternoon she just came and she looked like a bomb had gone off in her life. She was literally covered in smoke and dirty and just in shock, and we instantly loved her. After 3.5 years of pursuing reunification with birth parents, we were given the gift to adopt her. And last summer, we started this process again. I always say we're suckers for punishment, but on December 5th, we got a text about a baby boy in the NICU who needed a home, and Chase and I looked at each other and immediately said yes. Our Reach family rallied around us and stepped in and provided meals and baby items that we needed, and honestly, we've stepped into the hardest few months of our lives. He's about 5 months old now, and every day with him feels like an answered prayer. We've taken down all the walls in our heart to protect ourselves, and we're trusting God open-handedly. It's painful to think about, but it also is incredible to give our lives to a little one so he can have a strong start.
I had always dreamed of being a young mom since I was little, but my first pregnancy did end in a miscarriage. Then hope came again, and I got pregnant, but at 19 weeks, my daughter said goodbye. Grief came, loneliness came. It was a wave of emotion that I just didn't know how to handle. And then another hit came because my young marriage, it ended. But thankfully, a few years later, God gave me a second chance at love with Brad. And we had absolutely all the dreams and excitement of starting a family, especially since we were moving to North Carolina. But the night before we moved, I got a call that said that I would never have children of my own. And that felt like a third hit. And as I was trying to find my footing again, I got another call that said I had the early stages of cervical cancer. So that was a lot for both of us to handle amidst a move, but I just could not understand anymore what God was doing. I became an absolute mess, filled with fear, filled with uncertainty, just about life, about my own worth. But I can tell you today, cancer-free, that while my dreams were breaking, God was building a new life in me, a life that I just could not have imagined. And I can say today that I am not broken. I can say today that my story is full of purpose. And I can also say that it's full of joy. Joy in knowing that God never left me. Joy in knowing that I will see my children one day. And also the complete joy of knowing that I get the privilege of pouring into over 100 kids and their families every single week. I am a mom, and I can tell you that my life has purpose, my life has joy, and God is not done with me yet. And whoever needs to hear this, He is not done with you yet either.
We wanted to do something special for moms this year, and so I guess it's a tradition. It's the second time we've done it. We're only like a year and a half old. But we gave a donation in your name, all the moms here, to Hand of Hope Crisis Pregnancy Center. They do an amazing job of caring for and providing resources for new moms in really tough circumstances. So we gave them a check for $5,000 that they're going to use to help do free ultrasounds. Yeah. They also have a coffee shop where they employ those single moms that need that. And then one cool thing is that we're taking our first few steps into starting an adoption and foster care ministry. And so on May 31st, in between services, we're going to have a foster care and adoption info session. So me and Jenny, we went through adoption 3 times. We just never got a kid. As Jenny explained, we've been through foster care. We're in our 4th foster kid now. Brittany, who basically runs the church, our director's operations, I call her Pregnant Brittany. She's not pregnant, but she can have a kid this afternoon if they make the call. And so we're going to be there. There's going to be representatives from Wake County DSS as well as Christian Adoption Services. So if you've ever been interested in foster care adoption, it's not for everyone. We know that. If you are a current foster parent or you are currently in the process of adopting or have adopted, we would love you there as well, just to get to know you and learn from your experience. So it's no pressure, just an information session. And then eventually we want to provide, meals for people that adopt or foster. We want to provide adoption grants through our church so that you don't have to raise quite as much money. There's lots of stuff we want to do, but this is the first step. So, all right, I want to read you something. It's something I saw on Facebook, or maybe some cheesy someone that forwarded it to me, but it's one of those cheesy email forwards back in the day, but I tracked it down because I remembered it and I loved it, and God bless the internet because nothing goes away. And It's this. It's job description of a mom. The position, mother, mom, mama. Or today we could add bruh to that as well. But job description. Long-term team players needed for challenging permanent work in an often chaotic environment. Candidates must possess excellent communication and organizational skills and be willing to work variable hours, which will include evenings and weekends and frequent 24-hour shifts on call. Some overnight travel required, including trips to primitive camping sites on rainy weekends and endless sports tournaments in faraway cities. Travel expenses not reimbursed. Extensive courier details also required. Responsibilities will last for the rest of your life. Must be willing to be hated, at least temporarily, until someone needs $5. Must be willing to bite tongue repeatedly. Also must possess the physical stamina of a pack mule and be able to go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds flat in case this time the screams from the backyard are for real. Must be willing to face stimulating technical challenges such as small gadget repair, mysteriously sluggish toilets, and stuck zippers. Must screen phone calls, maintain calendars, and coordinate production of multiple homework projects. Must have ability to plan and organize social gatherings for clients of all ages and mental outlooks. Must be willing to be indispensable 1 minute and embarrassment the next. Must handle assembly and product safety testing of 500,000 cheap plastic toys and battery-operated devices. Must always hope for the best but be prepared for the worst. Must assume final, complete accountability for the quality of the end product. Responsibilities also include floor maintenance and janitorial work throughout the facility. Possibility for advancement and promotion, none. Your job is to remain in the same position for years without complaining, constantly retraining and updating your skills so that those in your charge can ultimately surpass you. Previous experience, none required, unfortunately, but on-the-job training offered on a continually exhausting basis. Wages and compensation. Get this, you pay them. Offering frequent raises and bonuses. A balloon payment is due when they turn 18 because of the assumption that college will help them become financially independent. When you die, you give them whatever's left. And the oddest thing about this reverse salary scheme is that you actually enjoy it and wish you could only do more. Benefits, while no health or dental insurance, no pension, no tuition reimbursement, no paid holidays, and no stock options are offered, this job supplies limitless opportunities for personal growth and free hugs for life if you play your cards right. Isn't that cool? Thank you, whatever crazy aunt sent me that like 10 years ago. That's a realistic outlook on being a mom, isn't it? Being a mom is not for wimps. But today I want to turn our attention to another realistic outlook, not about the struggles and the hardships and the daily struggle of being a mom, but about the eternal worth and glory of the role of being a mom. And this is needed. In our culture, motherhood is simply not celebrated the way that it should be. On countless TV shows and movies or podcasts, social media, kids are seen as, I guess they're necessary, but they're also evil, right? It's necessary evil. It's something only to embrace once you've accomplished what you want in life. And so motherhood is seen as something that you do when you're ready for the fun and the fulfillment to end. And it's all about personal achievement. That's the important thing, the celebrated thing, but the silent, just endurance and the patient effort of mom is at best looked down upon and at worst seen as the last thing any sane woman would want. But the Bible is very different than our culture. The Bible is filled with encouragement and exhortations and high praise for those who embrace the highest calling that we can have as women, which is motherhood. According to the Bible, it's one of the best things that you can ever do with your life. And you don't have to read very far in the Bible to see this. In fact, the very first few chapters of the Bible, Genesis 1 and 2, are, in a way, about the worth and the glory of motherhood. In fact, in Genesis 1 and 2, and this is not overstating it, one of the primary theological points is that the whole world that God made is incomplete without moms. God's whole plan for the cosmos can't even start until the first mom arrives on the scene. If you remember the story, God creates the sun and the stars and light and darkness and the earth and all the animals and everything in it in 6 days. And then the second to last thing he makes, not the ultimate, but the penultimate thing he makes is man. He makes Adam. And God gives Adam a very clear mission. He says, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth with my image, with little bits of my glory, and subdue the earth. So create culture, create nations and art and what we know as civilization. And so he sends Adam out into the garden and says, what I've done with the garden, you do with the rest of the world. Have fun. And so Adam goes out and he's like, I think I'm missing something. Like, this is hard. I don't know if I can do this on my own. And so he goes back to God and he's like, I feel like I need something else. He's like, well, God's like, well, I've given you tons and tons of different animals. Why don't you go catalog them and name them and see if one of them fits the bill? And so he goes and names all of them. There's a slug and there's a hyena and the hippopotamus, whatever. And he goes back to God. He's like, these are great. Some of them are industrious. They can do some crazy stuff, but I just feel like none of them are like me. I feel kind of incomplete. Even with all these animals, I'm not up to the task. And of course, that's the whole point of the exercise of naming the animals. God wanted Adam to feel what it felt like to be alone, to be incomplete. And so once he feels that, he says, you take a nap. So he takes a rib, creates Eve. And once that's done, he wakes up and he presents Eve to Adam like this amazing Christmas gift. He doesn't do this with anything else in creation, just Eve. And he puts her before him, and he says, Adam, this is what you've been waiting for. In fact, this is what the whole universe has been waiting for. This is the key to everything. We were on hold until this moment. And Adam looks at her, and his eyes get wide. And the very first poetry ever spoken in history is what he says the moment he sees Eve. In fact, God says you can name her as well. And so Ish means man in Hebrew. He names her Isha. So Ish, right? Like man, woman, I'm man, but this is whoa, man. And God calls her an interesting word. He calls her a helpmeet. Our culture probably doesn't like that. You mean like daddy's little helper? I'm just here to help man. It's actually an interesting word. It's only used a few other times in the Old Testament. And get this, every other time it's used to refer to God and God alone. It's a divine title. Wives, mothers, you are the key that unlocks our ability to accomplish the mission that God has given us. Without you, we would literally be nothing. And men, you know this. Maybe you won't admit it. I was thinking this week, I was doing a lot of honey-do stuff this past weekend. I'm like, I'm tired. And then I thought, what would my life be like without Jenny? What would your house look like, Ben, without the mom of your kids? You have like a lazy boy, a big screen TV, and like 3 sleeping bags. That's it. What would your diet look like without your mom or your wife? You'd be dead in like a year. How would your kids turn out? They could probably skin a deer and like spit 20 feet, but would they know how to clean themselves or take pride in themselves or manage their own homes or connect with others? Moms, in like a serious life and death way, like we need you. And this theme's all throughout the Bible. In fact, I want to go to a quick story in Genesis chapter 24. If you have your Bibles, go ahead and turn there. We know you can only read a real Bible in like the first 8 rows. Sorry, we can't fix that. If you're in the back, you can pull out your cell phone. And Genesis, if you're new to the Bible, it just records the first book. It just records Adam and Eve, so creation, the fall. Then we have the flood. And then we have the lives of the patriarchs or the fathers of the faith. So there's Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Then the rest of the Old Testament is just Israel, which is the 12 sons of Joseph. And then we eventually get to Jesus. And you may be familiar with the stories of a lot of the patriarchs. So Abraham, you know, Father Abraham, had many sons. You know that guy. You know Jacob, he saw the stairway to heaven. And you know Joseph, right, the coat of many colors. But I bet 9 out of 10 of you couldn't tell me a single thing about the life of Isaac. And it's because he only has 2 chapters that are about him when he's an adult. It's Genesis chapter 24 and 26. And it's interesting how the authors of the Bible chose to summarize his life. How did Isaac move the promise of God forward? What part did he play in the eternal plan to save and remake the world? Well, in a sentence, he chose the right wife and mother to his kids. That's like Isaac didn't do much with his life, but he did one thing right. He chose the right woman to marry and to have kids with. And it's an amazing story. I remember telling Jenny, I read through this in a devotion 10 years ago. I probably told you this last week. But I said, if I'm ever invited to speak at a pastoral conference or a church planting conference, this is going to be the text that I choose, because I think men underestimate how important wives and the mothers of their kids is to God's calling on your life. But it says this, 24:1, now Abraham was old, he was well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all that he had, put your hand under my thigh, that I may make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife from my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell, but will go to my country and to my kindred and take a wife for my son Isaac. See, Abraham understood how incredibly important having the right wife and the right mother was. He had a little bit of experience. He had kids with 2 wives. He's like, that didn't work out so well. And so he's lying on his deathbed. He's thinking about the future life of his son. And he says, the most important thing that I can do for my son before I die, it's more important than material possessions. It's more important than land or property. It's more important than wisdom or know-how. The most important thing I can do for him is to help him choose a good wife and a good mother. So he says, don't you dare let him pick from the Canaanites. This isn't racist, it's religious. The Canaanite women worshiped different gods and would pull Isaac away from the real God. So he says, go back to my hometown where they at least know about you through me. There's a respect and a reverence for the one true God. And it says this, the servant said to him, perhaps the woman may not be willing to follow me to this land. Must I then take your son back to the land from which you came? And Abraham said to it, see to it that you do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, and who spoke to me and swore to me, to your offspring I will give this land, he will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. Notice that? He will send an angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this oath of mine. Only you must not take my son back there. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. Abraham says, this is such an important matter. This determines so much of the quality of life and really the fulfillment that the promise that God gave me. It's such an important deal that the God of the universe is going to be personally involved. He says, no, you don't understand. You don't have to go find this. God's already picked out this woman. In fact, he didn't just pick her out. He designed her for this unique purpose. And because this is such a huge, important deal, he's going to send an angel ahead of you to show you the woman that God has designed specifically for my son. When I read this 10 years ago, I didn't like it because my wife will tell you, I didn't like the idea of soulmate, you know. Jenny in the early years, she'd be like, isn't it amazing that I found you and you found me and we're just soulmates? And I was like, that's a load of bull. Like, the math doesn't work out. What if someone picks the wrong one and it throws off every other couple in the entire world, you know? But after 20 years and 3 kids and now a bonus foster little man, I have to admit, God knew what he was doing when he sent me to her. She is the perfect wife for me, the perfect God-designed, God-selected mother for my kids. And moms, you need to know that. I know marriage is hard. And you're like, I don't know how much I can put up with this dude. And your kids are like, they're making me pull my hair out. But you are, in no uncertain terms, you are the God-designed, God-selected, perfect wife for that man. And you are the perfect mom for those unique kids. No one could do a better job than you. That's why God gave them to you. An old saint was once asked, hey, motherhood's so hard, would you do it again? And the old saint said, of course, in a heartbeat, just with different kids, right? That's not true, all right? God chose you for that man, and he chose you for those kids. And Abraham understands how spiritual and serious this is. He lets his servant put his hand in a really awkward place. No, I know I'll get emails about that. Some of you weren't listening. I don't know what the whole under the thigh means. Actually, I do. It's worse than you think if you research it. But sometimes the Bible's weird. Email Josh. He'll tell you. All right, verse 10. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, taking all sorts of choice gifts from his master. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia to the city of Nahor. And he said, O Lord God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. Underline that. Behold, I'm standing by the spring of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let the young woman to whom I shall say, please let down your jar that I may drink. And who shall say, drink, and I will water your camels. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. And look at this last verse. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master. Here's another thing we see about wives and moms. They are a loving gift of God. How do you know God loves you? Just look to that wife or that mom. That's how you know. You know, there's a few other gifts that we see God giving to mankind. There's the gift of his presence. There's spiritual gifts that we all have. There's the gift of health, of wealth, of different friendships. Ultimately, the gift of his son, Jesus. But among that list of the gifts that the God of the universe has given to us is the gift of moms. A good mom is proof of how much God loves you. You can look to her and say, man, how could I ever doubt that God sees or God cares or God loves? She's proof of that. It says this in verse 15, before he had finished speaking, behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her water jar on her shoulder. And the young woman was very attractive in appearance. Now, the Bible usually downplays the attractiveness of people, and so she was like stunning, Rebekah was. A maiden who no man had known. And she went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up, and she's heading back home. But then verse 17, then the servant ran to meet her and said, hey, please give me a little water to drink from your jar. And immediately she said, drink, my lord. And she quickly let down her jar upon her hand and gave him a drink. And when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw water for your camels also until they are finished drinking. And so she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well to draw water, and she drew for all of his camels. This is incredible. Note the generosity. She sees a need and she just meets it. Before she drinks herself, she gives the servant water. Then she goes through watering all the camels. Isn't that just like a mom? Spend 2 hours cooking and then making sure everyone has their plates and everyone's eating before she makes her own plate. Or even though she's only slept for 3 or 4 hours, she gets up and helps pack those lunches and get the kids off to school so she can take a nap later. That's so common with moms. It's selfless generosity. It's like built into your DNA. And then notice the strength. Camels, if you know this, you don't know this. I don't know why I said that. No one owns camels here. But camels can drink a lot of water, 10 to 20 gallons at one sitting. So this is a labor-intensive task. 10 to 20 gallons for 10 of these camels, 100 gallons, 200 gallons. If it was a dude, he would have given up after 3, but not Rebekah. And I didn't know how strong women could be until I saw Jenny with our first 2 kids. You agree, men? There's just a strength. A few weeks ago, my brother-in-law, he's actually right there, but he came over to help care for our new, almost said his name, I can't do that, little man, our foster kid. Actually, Gina, his wife, cared for him completely, but he got to hold the little man, and he's in construction. You'll see him when he leaves. He's got big old biceps and huge muscles from swinging a hammer all day, and he was holding little man for about 12 minutes, and his arm started to shake. And he was like, how in the world do you hold this baby all day long? That's woman's strength, right? Because a mom will hold a baby for 4 hours while cooking a whole meal, organizing the kitchen, and spanking another kid, right? And she doesn't even sweat. That's mom's strength. Well, obviously, this is the one that God had appointed. Now, it's just a matter of convincing her family to let her go. So the servant meets with Rebekah's family. If you're kind of a Bible dork, her brother is Laban. And Laban is going to be Jacob's father-in-law, and he's a trickster. He's conniving. He tricks him out of 14 years of his life. And so he has to convince him. But this is a crazy ask. And this is why I'm so drawn to this story. I want to camp out here for a second. What the servant is asking is that Rebekah leave the comfort of her family, the safety of everything she's ever known. She knows the language. She knows the customs. She knows the people. She knows all the merchants. She knows all the road names. She knows that place. And he's saying, Rebekah, I want you to leave to go a long distance into an unknown land where they speak a different language and there's different customs and it's just a different environment, and to marry and bear children for this guy named Isaac. And get this, she doesn't even know what he looks like. It's not even a blind date. It's a blind marriage, which sometimes I think y'all did, because I'll go out in the auditorium and I'm like, man, look at him and look at her. How in the world did that happen? Was she just received sight like a week ago? No, I'm just kidding. This is a crazy request, right? Men, look at your wife right now. Children, look at your mom. Do you know what she has sacrificed for you? Do you know how much trust and faith in the Lord she had to have to leave the safety of her family and start a brand new life with a young, unproven husband, and then to bring living souls that will last forever into the world and take responsibility for feeding them and washing them and caring for them and nurturing them? What a crazy sacrifice. What incredible obedience. And that's what strikes me about this story. Without that woman by your side, without that mom down the hall, your family simply could have never gotten to where it is now. Without my mom, Donna, where's she at? Raise your hand. Where's she at? She's in here somewhere. Without mom, and without Jenny, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. I certainly wouldn't have had the family that I have today. I wouldn't have the ministry that I have today. I wouldn't have the impact that I hope that I have. If I were to trace, and if you were to trace the stream of most of the blessings in your life, I guarantee they're going to find their way back to her. Well, the servant tells the family all that's happened, and they're astonished, and they agree to let her go. They know Abraham. And they agree to let her start a new family with this other man, something I'm going to have to do when my daughters get older. That's crazy when they're 58, though. And says this, 54, and he and the men who were with him ate and drank, and they spent the night there. And when they arose in the morning, he said, send me away to my master. And her brother and her mother said, let the young woman remain with us a while, at least 10 days, and after that she may go. That's Laban trying to get more money out of the servant, okay? Verse 56, but he said to them, do not delay me, since the Lord has prospered my way. Send me away that I may go to my master. And they said, let us call the young woman and ask her. And this is the first time she can give her own opinion. And this is the most powerful verse, I think, about wives, about moms. Verse 58, and they called Rebekah and said to her, will you go with this man? Will you leave everything you've ever known, start a brand new life, completely trust in the faithfulness and sovereignty of your God, and take a step to fulfill this mission of being fruitful, multiplying, filling the earth? Will you go with this man? And she said, I will go. That's what a mother is. God says, leave your family, trust this one man, put your future in my hands. And she said, I will. Or she said to you, husbands, I do on that day of your wedding. And then he says, be fruitful, multiply, go through the pain and hardship of pregnancy, maybe even losing a child along the way, the sleepless, thankless nights of the newborn, the physically exhausting years of toddlers, the emotionally exhausting years of teenagers. Fulfill my mission, carry out my purposes on earth. And you mothers looked at God and all of that, and you said, sure, sign me up, I will. It says in 1 Peter, moms are those that laugh at the future. They have such trust in the sovereignty of God. And she does. She goes, and there's this cute little moment later in the chapter where she meets Isaac, and Sarah had just died, Isaac's mom, and so he's kind of comforted there. And eventually she has Jacob and Esau. And then Jacob has 12 sons that turn into the 12 tribes. And from those 12 tribes come people like Samson and Saul and David and Solomon, and then eventually an unknown two people, Mary and Joseph, and then someone we all know about, Jesus. And in many ways, Jesus is like Rebekah, isn't he? He leaves the safety of his home. He takes on the role of servant. Whatever these people need, I'll do it. Living the life they couldn't live, dying the death they should have died, suffering on the cross in their place, all so that through that obedience, he could bring not physical children into the world, but spiritual sons and daughters, just filling up the kingdom of God. In a way, moms are like a living, breathing parable or a reenactment of the gospel, what Jesus does for us. So God took that faithful, trusting, obedient faith of Rebekah, and from that eventually brought salvation to the world. I don't think the author of Proverbs is exaggerating when it says this: an excellent wife who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good. Hear that, fellas? She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. The husband has respect and honor and a good life because of the wife and the mom that she is. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. And I love how this section ends. Worship team, you can come out. I love how this section ends. Just so you know, Proverbs 31 is an acrostic. It's like Psalm 119. You know what an acrostic is? It starts with a different letter. And it has every single letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, all the way to the end. And so Psalm 119 is about the word of the Lord. It's much longer, but this starts with a different letter. It's to help their kids learn the letters of the alphabet. So young kids, think, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, would memorize Proverbs 31. And they would get around the table in the evening. And they would practice their alphabet, but they would honestly be honoring their mom. There was a weekly, monthly, yearly set-aside time to do what this says. Verse 28, her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. It comes and it goes. But a woman who fears the Lord, who says, I will go, who says, here I am, Lord, send me. Whatever you ask, I'm going to give my life for this man and these kids for your glory and your renown and your mission. A woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. And it ends like this, verse 31, give her the fruit of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. The NIV puts it better. It says, honor her for what she's done. So moms, we know you deserve so much more than just a special day of the year and a little flower, a little card that your kids made. And you don't ask for anything in return, but kids, dads, I encourage you to do what this verse says. Give her what she deserves today and tomorrow and next week, which is honor. You know what she wants to hear more than anything? Not that she's pretty, not that she cooks good, not that she's killing it in business, but that her effort and sacrifices, they're seen, they're not in vain, and they're appreciated. In fact, I want you to look at your mom right now if she's in the room, or look at the mother of your kids. And I want you to just say 5 little words that'll just bless her heart. You ready? I'm so thankful for you. Just tell her. Donna, wherever you are, I'm so thankful for you. I don't have 2 wives. That's my real mom, okay? Jenny was here last service, but I'll say it. Jenny, I'm so thankful for you. You're a gift from God. You're a testament to his goodness. And we're going to sing about that right now. We're going to sing one last praise song. Hey, we have 9 people getting baptized. Isn't that incredible? Yeah. So if you are getting baptized, you can stand up right now. You can leave. We have a T-shirt for you at the visitor tent. Everyone else, stay here. We're going to sing one more song. The wife and the mother is a testament of God's goodness. We're going to sing about God's goodness. And then afterwards, we're going to dismiss, and everyone is going to not run, but power walk to get their kids as quickly as possible and bring them out to celebrate baptisms. Love you guys. Let's stand and sing this last song.